Good evening, Gals and Ghouls. Welcome back to another episode of Cryptic Insight. My name is Cedric, and today we will be talking about Halloween 2 from 1981, directed by Rick Rosenthal. Now, oh my gosh, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie. Largely, after this most recent watching, this most recent viewing, I've come to it is a wonderful sequel. It's directly after the first film. And, there's been a bunch of things that have been said about this film and why it's often regarded as, most of the time, it's the second best Halloween film in the franchise. Most people view it as such. And I'm still going to give this film a largely favorable review because much of the lighting, much of the cinematography, and we bring back much of the actors. Just we do a lot in this movie. There's a lot of things that are done to make it feel like the original film and the original night back in 1970. As many people know, you can watch both the first film and this film back to back, and it feels like a complete movie, complete experience. There's even a supercut out there, and you can watch both films back to back on one disc. This is a great film. However, I think I'm going to start off with some of the things I did not like about the film. Some of the things that I did not like about the film are that, for instance, the second act. We'll start with the second act. The second act is a little slow for me, which is interesting because one of the things that I mentioned that I like about the first film is its pacing and the fact that it takes its time to breathe. And with this film, I do not feel like it takes its time. It doesn't fill in the space with something that is effective to me. For instance, the second act is filled with some great kills. We've got the hot tub kill, the security guard kill, some good suspense, some good scares, and some wonderful setup. However, I just something about it. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of sustenance, as in with the slow pacing that we're going with to make it feel like the original 1978 film. And I got to tell you, I don't know. The second act feels like I could, it leaves me wanting more. The second act, I want more from the second act. But I mean, that being said, like I said, there's still great kills. There's still, we get to follow Michael, and we get to see Michael doing what he does. And so it's not that the second act isn't a fun experience, but I do think it is the weakest part of this film for me. And during this viewing, it even stood out to me even more, I guess. And so I think that's where I'll start with some of my negatives, and just the middle part of this film feels like there's more to be had. And it just feels like you could definitely tell that to a degree they didn't really know what else to do with the storyline moving forward. And now, I guess moving on to some of the things that I liked, there's a lot of things I liked about this movie, even though I felt like the second act, after this most recent viewing, was something that, I don't know, me personally, just something about it, something glared at me, and I was just like, I don't know, the second act just kind of feels like it's dragging on to a degree. Like, we got good things in here, but yeah. But moving forward, the first act of this movie starts out great. We start right after Loomis shoots Michael off the balcony. We do have the continuity error of him shooting him 7 times instead of 6. There are 7 shots that fire off at the beginning of the movie instead of 6. We have Loomis running downstairs, checking to see where Michael is. The music's playing. We're right into the night again. It seems seamless. And I think it was a good choice to start with the ending of the first film to begin this film, because if we had just started the film for instance, if we start with the film without recapping kind of the ending of the first film, I think the beginning of this film suffers a little bit because we kind of just go right into it. And I don't think with the pacing of this film and the original film and the feeling of that the movies are going for, I don't think that that would have been effective if we had just started with a shot of Loomis running downstairs and um, looking around for Michael. Um, so the beginning of this film is wonderful. I think it starts off great. We've got Michael going around Haddonfield and to the Elrod house, grabbing the knife, stalking people. He gets a kill in. We hear the radios going. Loomis gets in the police car. He's going crazy because he shot him 6 times, and so we have all that, and I love that. But and so that's there's no but. It literally the beginning of this film is very strong. I like that we are back in Haddonfield. The lighting's great. We're moving along. It's a wonderful. It's just a good experience. It's just I enjoyed myself. The intro credits are rolling. We get right into Haddonfield, 1978. We're going, and Michael is off and rolling, and Loomis is off and rolling. And I like that we're going back and forth between Michael and Loomis, and we're catching up with Lori. We're seeing where she's at, but she just got attacked. But the strength of the beginning of this movie is what we see with Loomis and Michael, in my opinion. And that, to me, that's more than enough. It's a wonderful beginning of the film. And then, of course, we have the third act, and the third act of the film is just the third act of the film is where this movie shines. When we finally get Michael chasing Lori throughout the hospital, and they finally see each other. She sees him. She knows he's there. And we begin the final girl sequence, so to speak. Not so much a traditional final girl sequence as in other slasher films, but this is 1981, early 80s, at the beginning of the slasher boom. So, can't fault it for that too much, but it's not a traditional final girl sequence in the fact that she's fighting back. She's more running away, and she's being creative in the way she's escaping to put room in between her and Michael. And it works. It works. And Michael going through the hospital, the music is playing. And then, of course, we have the three elements that make this movie its strongest. We have Lori, Loomis, and Michael all converging finally at the ending of this movie. And I think what we have here is something that really, of course, as many know in the horror community, Halloween is kind of your choose your own adventure. And so if you wanted to, and you wanted to just watch the first film, you can do that. But if you watch these two movies and you just want to watch these two movies, you could do that in a completionist perspective because of the ending. Michael burns to death. If you view Halloween 2 as a definitive ending. And Loomis goes out with him. Lori is staring off into the darkness in the ambulance, and we can just tell that by the look on her face that she will be thinking about this for the rest of her life. And it's just so, like I said, it's the first act and the third act really kind of make up the ground for what that second act is. I feel like the second act we just really didn't know what we wanted to do, and I know that in interviews before, Carpenter and Rick Rosenthal, they didn't want to do Halloween 2 in the first place. They thought they had told everything they needed to tell, and so they had difficulty writing material in the first place for Halloween 2, and they even reshot some things for the TV cut, which made it even longer. Because this is more on the short side of horror films. The first act and the third act, because Loomis and Michael really are the two characters that shine in this movie the most, which leads me to, I suppose, another point that I forgot to touch on that I don't like. The acting outside of Loomis and even Michael, even though he's the shape and he doesn't express much and he's just walking around and he's doing his thing, killing. The acting from others, including Jamie at sometimes, seems out of place, dry, and just that's why the second act really kind of falters in my eyes, is because we have less of Loomis and less of Michael, and we're not with Lori and Jamie really showing off her acting chops because she's drugged and everything. So we're relying on these secondary characters that just don't put a lot of heart into it outside of is Bud. And Bud is, of course, Bud has a lot of character to him, but of course he's a sleazebag. He's kind of a jerk, um, a bit of a creep and insensitive, and but you still feel that like he acts that well, whereas the others like Jimmy feels a little creepy. With his dynamic with Lori, even he even says, "I know you don't know me, but I'm not gonna let anything happen to you." I don't know. It just feels out of place, and the acting seems dry, even with Jimmy, just from the other actors, all the nurses involved. It just seems I just couldn't help but notice it or feel that like I don't know in most of those instances if I would actually express my feelings and react in that way, especially when you can't find heads of staff and supervisors and when they go missing and Jimmy's talking to, I can't remember the nurse's name at the moment, but when he's talking to the nurse because he can't find anybody and he's like, get in your car, he's coming up with a plan essentially, and he's just not, he doesn't deliver it. The actor doesn't deliver it very well, in my opinion. Um, of course, the dynamic with Jimmy and Lori is even more strange because of her feelings for Ben Tramer in my eyes, and but she's kind of flirting with Jimmy. Not to say you can't do that, of course, but um, it's just to me when I view Lori, I don't view her as someone that's like, oh, I have, like she has feelings for Ben. I would imagine that the character of Laurie Strode would probably not go out of her comfort zone and feel a sense of loyalty to Ben. Not to say that that is always the case, and that doesn't have to be the case. That's just what I personally feel about the character. Um, and given her kind of social awkwardness outside of her friend group, and about boys from the first movie, I don't the whole kind of soft flirtatiousness with Jimmy is kind of off-putting to me. But yeah, I mean, other than the weird acting in the second middle act, we've got the first and third act with Michael and Loomis doing their thing, which is wonderful. It's so awesome. The ending is amazing with Michael coming out of the hallway. He's on fire. The music is going. It's just it really does with Dean Cundy's lighting and just every like with, and of course it helps that they use the original mask, even though it's a bit weathered from Deborah Hill's smoking. It still looks like the original mask. It still looks great. Dick Warlock really does a good job embodying Michael Myers and being intimidating in the role. Um, I really liked Dick Warlock's portrayal. I still think I prefer Nick Castle's portrayal. I know there's a lot of Dick Warlock fans, and I am a Dick Warlock fan. I think he does a great job playing Michael Myers in this movie. But I think I heard someone put it. This is a great way of putting it. I heard it from somebody else. I can't remember who I heard it from at the moment, but Nick Castle kind of feels more like Michael Myers, whereas Dick Warlock feels like he's more embodiment of the shape, of the concept of the shape, pure evil. Um, which reminds me and brings me to another thing I don't like about this movie. I do not like the sibling relationship. I know that is controversial in the Halloween community, but it's not to say I hate it. I get why it's in there. John Carpenter didn't really know what else to put in the script essentially over a six pack of beer. Um, didn't want to do a sequel, and it's like, how do we explain and put in motivation and understanding and reasoning as to why Michael is so driven towards going to the hospital to find Laurie Strode? Um, I get why it's in there, and I get why a lot of people like it, and it does make sense to a degree because Michael killed his sister in the first film, but he was supposed to be purely and simply evil. There's not supposed to be motivation to Michael Myers. Um, and I don't like that they add motivation and explain a bit of background to him. And this is kind of where the explanation of his background kind of begins, unfortunately. Even though this is definitely one of the better Halloween sequels out there compared to the rest of them, because I mean we've got many people who worked on the first film are working on this one. And as I said before, the lighting and direction and cinematography make this movie feel like John did it himself again, and it just feels like a direct continuation of the first movie. I just don't like that we start to kind of get into who Michael Myers was and is. To me, Michael Myers is the Shape. He is pure evil. He does not care who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, what you're saying. He will, if you're in his way, you will be killed. You will be killed by him because he's, a lot of people are saying right now, making the metaphor, the comparison that he's a killer shark. And I mean, it's a little, to me, it seems a little very fitting, especially because, Michael Myers wears a dark blue jumpsuit and a white mask. And when most people think of a shark, they think of a great white shark, which has a blue-gray coloration on the top and a white belly. Blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Sharks have black eyes. So it's a very fitting comparison. And sharks have very little motivation in doing what they do besides, survival and feeding and things like that. And so I think it's a fit comparison. And when you add in the sibling relationship, I feel it takes away from Michael Myers and what he embodies to many. But other than that, I mean, we've got the sheriff, not sheriff, Officer Hunt, I believe, because Sheriff Brackett's only in this for a very little while, which I think is a shame, but I understand with the direction in the script, I think it fits. I think Hunt is actually a good character. His acting varies from time to time. I feel he does a good job with the character, and he's serviceable as the head of the police for the audience. In that relation with Mike and Loomis. So I think his character works, but I am a little sad that Charles Cypher's character, Sheriff Brackett, is not in the movie for longer. I really enjoyed their dynamic. Donald Pleasance and Cypher's Loomis and Brackett, I enjoyed their dynamic together. But Hunt is pretty good. He seems sympathetic towards Brackett and Loomis and what they're trying to do. So I like Sheriff Hunt, I think, or Officer Hunt. I don't know. I don't think he's a sheriff. Officer Hunt. I like his character. And yeah, overall, I think I'd give this film 4 gravestones out of 5. Definitely recommend watching it. I don't think it's my personal favorite Halloween sequel. We'll see how that goes later down the road. But it's definitely a film worth watching. It definitely feels like a direct continuation of the first film. It is a wonderful watch, and I highly recommend it. All right, Gals and Ghouls. I will see you in the next episode when we review Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Until then, my other video on the first Halloween film from 1978 is up. Please go check that out. Let me know what you think. And stay creepy. I will see you next time.